Jullie, als je kassen met de gelaten.
Cool. Hello, everybody. We're coming on here today to have conversation, our Friday conversation. And today's topic is Lemuria. And I'm really excited because I have like a whole, most of a notebook full of things I've channeled about Lemuria. And that was just from one period of time. I've done so many journeys, so much, I don't know. I've spent a lot of time with Lemuria, and I have a collective of beings from Lemuria that I work with as well. So that's what this notebook is full of, things that I've channeled in regards to Lemuria and that type of energy. So that collective is called Luna. And yeah, they are amazing, and they bring through so much guidance in I don't know, energy that we can choose to embody. So if you are new here, welcome. First of all, this is going to be spread across different platforms. So first of all, it's being recorded live, or we're live on our I almost said YouTube channel, in our Facebook group called Sorceress Circle. So we go live every Friday with the conversation. We're also live on Mondays and Wednesdays for channeling. And so make sure that you join our group if you're not already in there, if you feel called. And if you don't know me, I am Lalantia. I'm a psychic realm channeler and energy healer, and I specialize in working with the magical realms. I work with dragons, unicorns, mermaids, fairies, all of the different magical beings. Also work with the last lands, Lemuria, Atlantis, and Avalon. That's why I'm so excited about this conversation. But a lot of what I do is about like the remembrance of who we really truly are. So accessing your most magical, truest self. So your past lives from Lemuria, Atlantis, and Avalon, and the wisdom that you held in those lifetimes, but also healing different lifetimes, and not just those lifetimes, but others as well. I also work a lot in the galactic energy, but that, like, if we start talking about all the things that we do, like, we'll go on all day. So I know that this is going to be posted on my YouTube channel, The Lalantia Show. It's going to go on Nathalie and I's YouTube channel as well. So it's going to be cross-posted to reach more people and kind of give you guys an idea of, I don't know, the things that we do in other spaces, so that you can check it out. 'Cause normally it's like different content. Like I never post the same stuff on my YouTube channel that I do in the group. And so this is kind of a different experience, but I think that it will be really great because I have a lot of people on my YouTube channel that are really into Lemuria and Atlantis and Avalon. So it's a great way to kind of spread that. So Nathalie, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Nathalie. I'm an intuitive reader and artist. So I actually make portraits of spirit guides and spirit beings coming forward for clients. I give them messages as well with that. I'm a cosmic medium, so I work a lot with galactic and cosmic beings. And I'm also an animal and nature communicator. And I don't really have a lot of personal experience when it comes to Lemuria. So I'm actually really excited about this session because Lalantia is definitely going to take the forefront today. But it's really cool because I can listen in, I can learn so much from this. And it's really interesting to be on the other part of the conversation as well. So I can think about questions that you guys might want some answers to as well. So it's really interesting to be on this side for a change.
Yeah, and I think that it's good to have, like, I like having a conversation with somebody who isn't as experienced in it. So that, because I've been working in this energy for several years now, sometimes I forget like the basics that people, like I can skim over some of the details because I'm so used to it. So yeah, and I also want to invite everybody who is watching live or on the replay to ask questions, because that helps me know, what people are thinking and what you're getting from what I am sharing. I did pull up a page from my notebook to read from, a message that Luna had shared. So I will talk about that a little bit, or share that as well. But I just kind of wanted to go into like the basics of Lemuria a little bit. So Lemuria is one of the lost lands, depending on what language you use. That's the language I use. So it was a civilization that existed before the beginning of Atlantis. And there was an overlap in time within the time of Lemuria and Atlantis. So there was a time when both of them existed. And we have to also remember that we're looking back on time and we're thinking of it as just like the small civilization that only lasted a little while, but it was thousands of years. So it was a great period of time in all of the lost lands and different civilizations as well, really. But we forget because just the way that our human minds work. I suppose we can greet everybody now. It looks like people are joining us more. So hello, Lena. It's good to see you here. And Lisa is here. Hello. And another Lisa is here. Awesome. Today is the day of L's. Everybody has an L name so far. Let's see who else shows up. Maybe we'll have another Lisa show. So if you guys have questions about Lemuria, things that you want me to talk about specifically, please post them, because I can talk about this topic all day. I'm not going to be able to barely even like touch on it. Like, this is the basics of it. But like I said before, you know, I have been talking about this and teaching about this for such a long time that sometimes I maybe skim over details that are more important to you, or it might not go into something that you're really curious about. So it helps to know what your questions are, what you would like to know more about. So with Lemuria, we existed in this time on Earth where we were able to be in the space of alignment with our true selves. We did not operate an ego, and we were able to live in harmony as a community. So we worked together, we raised our children together. Everybody had memory of purpose and knew what they were here to do. Everybody did their part. It was quite idyllic. It was very in flow, very watery energy. We worked a lot in the energy of water. We worked together really, really well. Like, we understood each other better because we weren't operating in ego like we do now. But the problem that we had in this is that we weren't learning anything. And the point of coming to Earth and having a civilization on Earth was to learn. Earth is a school. So we weren't learning anything for our soul's evolution. Our souls were not satisfied. Even though, yes, we look back now and we remember our past lives in Lemurian, we're like, oh my goodness, it was so idyllic and beautiful, and I want to go back to that. We cannot go back to that because that is not how we learned things. We weren't expanding the way we wanted to. So that is one reason why that civilization ended, why we chose as souls collectively for that. Or you can look at it as the Galactic Federation, or whoever decided that that was a failed experimentation. Although I don't necessarily see it as failed, because we still had those experiences, and those are still a part of who we are, in that sense that we now know that we can remember those times when we lived in harmony and flow with the earth and with the other people or other beings that were there. So when we can remember it, then we can bring it into our lives now. And obviously we still have ego, we're still operating in this world, but we can expand that, and we know that we're creating the new earth. So it is all of our responsibilities to be able to show up the best that we can. And so when we feel into that memory of those times, it can help us to get back into that space of flow and ease and joy and grace and harmony. Harmony feels like a really accurate word for this, so that we can create that in the new earth. Do you have anything that you want to say before I jabber on?
No, I mean, I'm really like intrigued by it as well. And when you were talking about that we had that experience, and that's still an important part of what we're doing now. Yeah, I really resonated with that. And I mean, that might have been even like the purpose of why that happened, right? So we could look back at those experiences now and integrate them as well. So yeah, I think that's some really interesting stuff to think about.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because time is an illusion. So in a way, it's not like it's linear in that we had that and then we're like, oh, that doesn't work. So we saw it as, okay, we experienced what we needed to then, and it's a part of who we are now, so that we can work in that energy, so we can bring it forward, so we can know that we can work and live in harmony with the earth, which is really what we want to do. You know, we want to break down, you know, how this disharmony basically that has happened on earth as we have disconnected. We've disconnected from the earth, and we've disconnected from that space of flow and ease. We have made everything a struggle and a fight. We've been in survival for so many thousands of years now that it's hard to remember that it can be easy. And that's one thing that I got when channeling with Luna, is that, man, we sure do overthink things. Like we overthink things so much. And I'm like, I'm so glad I dug this journal out, because I'm like, I just need to like reread everything, because I think that just doing that is helping me so much. I need to put this into a book as well. But for now, it's like, yes, this, you know, like it's remembering, channeling her and remembering my past life journeys to Lemuria and my clients' past life journeys and journeys that we have done in programs, because we can connect with that energy again. Now, another part of what I want to talk about in regards to Lemuria is the beings, the Lemurian beings. Let me take a drink. I'm talking really fast today.
I like that you brought that up though, because that was one of the questions that was already like going through my mind. Like, what about the beings, right? Were there only like human beings in Lemuria, or like what was it like? So I really like that you brought that up already.
Yeah, so we weren't really human beings in the time of Lemuria. To be honest, I don't know if we would be still considered human beings, but we definitely did not have the solid bodies that we do now. Our bodies were, I do want to stress, it was a long period of time. You know, over thousands of years, our bodies, our forms may have changed some. So this is just my understanding of what I have experienced. It doesn't mean that this is only what happened. There may be things that I haven't seen, because thousands of years is a long time. So, but in my experience, we did not so much we were Lemurian beings instead of human beings. We did not have solid physical form. So we had a form, it was semi-solid, but it was more like translucent. So Nathalie, remember that guide that we channeled that stepped forward, the woman, and she's kind of translucent, and she was very like flowy. She had this really great, beautiful energy, this long dress-like thing, but yet it wasn't like a solid material or anything like that. Like that is what they look like.
Yeah, I do remember that. And it was really beautiful, just like you said. And do you think that's why we were more connected to the energy of Earth and the energies that are here available to us? Because we were less physical than we are now. So it was easier for us to perceive that way and connect in that way.
Yeah, it was definitely a part of it, because we know that Earth is very dense. So we weren't really in the full density of Earth. So that allowed us to be able to be in more of a flow, but also that we didn't have egos yet. Like so that changes everything. Not having an ego changes everything. Like our experience is totally different without an ego. But also we weren't confined to a form. So we could be one being, we could be a mirror being that lives in the ocean, you know, most of the time or much of the time, and then we could come up on land and have legs and walk upon the land. So, and there are different, I would say that there's different beings that look a little bit different, and so not that everybody looks the same. And of course, you know, as a mirror being, you have a tail. But there were animals that shapeshifted. So you could be a whale in the water and you could shapeshift and come on land. And I haven't gone into that too much. It's actually a part of Lemuria I really want to explore more, because I feel like my brain is maybe a little bit more ready to wrap wrap itself around this whole concept. But that's how I understand it to be. And so I'll talk about that more at a different time when I have a greater understanding of it. But that's what I have been told or shown. I don't really remember, but it's in my mind. So yeah, we weren't confined to the form. We also worked, so we had crystals that we would like embed in our form. So we would have like crystals in our chakras, and we could see our chakras like in a physical way. You could look at somebody and see their chakras, you know, and so we worked with energy naturally. It was naturally a part of our everyday life, is, you know, staying in balance and keeping them clear. And so we worked with crystals in a much deeper way than we do now. So we've kind of forgotten that depth. We're all about collecting crystals and having crystals, and we know, oh, this crystal does this and this crystal does this, but we don't go as deep with the crystal energy as we did in Lemuria. And we're kind of relearning that now. We're learning how to take that to the next level. And that's why a lot of times when I'm working with crystal energy, it's the essence, the energy of the crystal, and bringing that essence in and placing it within a chakra. And that's what I have been guided to do. And I think I started doing that before I even knew anything about the crystals that we had embedded in our bodies when we were Lemurian. And but we could see those. See, now, like, we don't see our chakras physically, and we don't see other people's chakras physically. And it's kind of an invasion of privacy to be like, oh, let me stare at that person's chakras and see if I can see them energetically. Like, you know, you only do that if you're like in a client session or something. Although, you know, other people's energy, like, you can't avoid sometimes seeing their energy because they're in front of you. And if you're very sensitive, you just see it. It's just there. But that's how it was like with the chakras, you know, like we could see them in Lemuria. So we had, we always had like this balance with our chakras and knowing how to work through our stuff. But we also didn't have the depth of stuff that we do now because we didn't have egos. So our chakras were more easily in balance and flow, and we were able to be in harmony with our greater purpose and our purposes. And we knew, like, when you remember, like, you have a knowing as a small child, even, well, I'm a healer, then of course you're going to start training as a child to be a healer, and you don't have to get caught up in doing this and this and this and this and this. You just go straight into the flow of your greater purposes and what you're there for. And it can be a particular kind of healer, or, you know, maybe you're a small child and you know that you're a crystal healer. And so you start, you know, working with crystals as a small child, and you just expand from there and find your way. There's not, it's much simpler. It was a very, very easy, simple, flowing way of life.
So do you think that we still do a lot of these things in an unconscious way? And what I mean by that is that we still have that knowing inside of us, and it comes out in different ways. So for example, that people still do healing with crystals right now. It might not be like embedding them into ourselves, but we're still working with them. We are still picking up on energies in a very unconscious way. Even people who aren't consciously or aware of it, when they walk into a room, they can feel other people's energy and they pick up on that. Even I think it was a couple of weeks ago that this famous rapper or I don't know, embedded a literal crystal on his head. And it was like a crazy thing because all of these people were like, whoa, he like put a diamond, he surgically put a diamond on top of his third eye.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so when you were talking about all of these things, I was like, you know what, actually unconsciously, we still use a lot of the stuff that we learned back then in that society.
Yeah, we do. And it has carried forward since then, you know, in other civilizations that we have lived in. So many past lives where it can be a resemblance of what it was in Lemuria. So yeah, it's that this is why I always say, like, your abilities are an innate part of who you are. You just have to allow them to flow forward. You just have to allow yourself, you have to feel worthy and deserving and know that you're good enough. But when you start to believe that and you build that energy and you connect more deeply with your most authentic self, which is a lot of what Luna, my Lemurian guide, says, you know, when you're connected to your authentic self, then you allow that flow of who you are. And that is a part of who you are. Your natural abilities to heal or read energy or whatever it may be. Maybe you heal plants or something. So I have always believed very strongly, and this is what my guide said to me from the beginning of my spiritual journey, is that everybody's abilities are unique and different, and every single person needs to recognize the power of their abilities. We are so conditioned to compare ourselves or to believe that we need to be trained and have a certification to do something. And people ask me sometimes, I actually do have quite a few certifications, but I don't advertise it, because the point is that I am certified by my higher self, by the universe, by God, source, whatever you want to say. Like, you don't need a certification in order to be a healer. Now, I understand that there are a lot of people out there that aren't authentic. They're not actually tuned into their abilities, and they do it for the wrong reasons. Then they just want to receive money. So that's why it's important to be connected to yourself and know who is right for you to connect with. And not just, you know, randomly, oh, you do Reiki? Okay, I want to have a session with you. Although Reiki is something you get attuned to. So that's not a great example. But if somebody were to say something that you don't actually know, like, you want to know whoever you're working with and know that they're in integrity. But as long as that is the case, you have to believe for yourself that people will be the same way, that they're going to be attracted to your energy. They know that you have something valuable to offer them in some way, and helping, you know, helping other people to open up in whatever way they're called to. There's so many, it's like way too broad to like go into it specifically, but I know for myself, people ask me, well, what are your healing abilities? And it's like, I kind of want to say, like, what isn't my healing abilities? Because, like, I just go in intuitively. And sometimes it's plant medicine that comes in. Sometimes it's crystal energy that comes in. Sometimes it's a specific guide. Sometimes it's an element. Sometimes it's a god or a goddess or some kind of magical tool from Lemuria that has weird designs all over it that does something that I can't describe to you. And I just follow it intuitively for each session. And yes, I also have an activated Merlin's Vortex wheel, and I do work with that as well. And I am a certified crystal healer, but generally those things are just like, if they randomly happen to come in when I'm doing healing. So this is what is, to me, is really important for people to recognize that within yourself, trusting in yourself to know intuitively or through your guides, whatever, what you need to do when you're doing healing upon another person or animal or plant, and practice it, you know, like, really. I always tell people, you know, start practicing with a plant. Pick a plant that isn't doing so well, or even one that is doing well, and just like learn to communicate with it. They don't communicate with words, but through an energy, start to get to know, well, how are their roots doing and how are their leaves? And this is what we did in Lemuria. It was natural for us. So it can be natural for us again. And that is what is important, that we allow it to be natural again, instead of questioning all of the time, how do I know how to do this? This doesn't make sense. And I get people saying this to me all the time in sessions or even on lives and stuff. And it's like, you just know, you just have to let yourself know and follow that within yourself, because it is a part of you. So the more you connect to yourself, the easier it becomes. So I see that Lisa has a question. Before I go there, do you want to add anything, Natalie?
I love what you said about the part that you don't need a certificate to be who you're meant to be, because like, that's how our society created it right now, right? Because I mean, like, it would be such a beautiful world if we could all just do what we love doing without having to follow strict boxes to get to that destination. And I think that a lot of people need to trust, like you said, in their ability to get there without fitting in those boxes that they have put upon us. Because you can have someone who has a certification because they had the money to pay for that course, but you can also have someone who has a lot more of that skill and has developed their abilities a lot more and not have a certification, but they practiced every single day and they just didn't have the money to get that certification. And it doesn't, like, I don't want to be comparing, like you said, but I mean, you have to keep an open mind in that way. And like you said, go with what you feel is right for you. So yeah, I think that's really interesting. And like you said, we all have that innate ability within us to really, and I learned this from working with you in coaching as well, that a lot of the times you let me go out very independently and you were asking me the questions that I had the answers within me, but I wasn't aware of them until you were asking the questions and I was just answering and you were like, yeah, that's what I was getting. So I'm really happy that you figured that out on your own. And I know how much confidence that gave me as well. So I love that, because they always, like, it's a thing in the spiritual community where they say that you are your own biggest healer. And that is so true. Like, you don't need to go to someone else to provide you with that healing or to provide you with that guidance. It's just because we don't have that belief or that confidence within ourselves, but it's all possible. Like, we don't need anyone else for that. That is within us.
Yes, absolutely. And I agree with that 100%. I think, like you had said when we did coaching, and I just had you lead and then I validated a lot of it, or I would ask the questions that would lead you to finding the answers. So I held that space of support, and then you gained the confidence to know for yourself, actually, I can do this on my own. I can receive these answers. And I do believe that, when we have a coach in some form, it doesn't even matter what it's about, but somebody who can remind us to look at things that we're not seeing on our own, because we are blind to our own stuff. So I do think in that case, having a coach or going to a healer or whatever to help navigate things is super important and very, very helpful in our own growth. But we are dismissing our own abilities and relying completely on others. We're giving our power away to others so much of the time, when in fact the power is within us. So this is what I like to do in coaching, is I like to give the power back to you and say, hey, I know that you can receive this information on your own, and I want you to tune into yourself and see what you get from this. And then they can tell me, this is a space that they can share. Oh, well, I'm just very much in my head. I'm having a really hard time. Okay, so what's your resistance to seeing it? What are you having fear about? Because maybe there's a past life connection there that is causing a resistance, or maybe they're not feeling good enough or worthy enough, or whatever it may be. And then we can explore that to move into the next step. But to me, it's really important to give that power back to you so that you can find your way. And I will validate, hold that space, and ask the right questions. So, and that's how I think, that's, I want the people that I coach or that do any of my programs to be able to finish and go out into the world and show up and have the tools to be able to do this work, to continue to do this work and continue to go in and be like, oh, you know what? Like when I was working with Lalantia, we went to Lemuria, we did a journey, and I remember that this happened. I know that I can do it on my own. So now and the questions that I ask also help you in the future when you go in and you do it yourself, and you go on a journey to Lemuria, and you're like, okay, so last time I was in Lemuria, I know that I experienced this, and now I want to experience this side of it. Can you please show me? And then to keep asking yourself questions, because that's what I do when I do journeys, as I ask questions. What does this mean? What is the relevance of this in regards to this? And those questions help guide you to whatever you're seeking, whatever you're looking for in that journey.
Yeah, I love that.
That was perfect conversation. Okay, so I do see that Thomas is here. So hello, Thomas. So Lisa says, I'd like to know the relationship with the plants and land. You already discussed crystal some, like the connection and communication with them. Also, were there more colors than what we have the ability to see today? So yes, about the colors. The colors, excuse me, our eyes were able to see more colors. So oftentimes when I go to Lemuria, and this happens for other planets that I've journeyed to as well, it's like, I'm like, what are these? Like, you can't even describe these colors, because it's like I'm remembering. So I'm seeing these colors that I have no words for, that we don't see with our human eyes. So definitely yes on the colors. So our communication with the plants and the land was much more open. We understood things as beings, and we had respect for them. So we had respect for the plants, we had respect for the land, and so we could communicate with it. I did a video recently that was about communicating with nature and communicating with the land. I can't remember exactly everything that I said, but part of it was being able to communicate with these mountains, because when I drove through the mountains, they were speaking to me, but they weren't speaking to me like a guide speaks to me. They were speaking to me through this energy that I was feeling radiating through my whole body, and these thoughts that were entering into my head, and all of these things were their way of communicating with me. So that's how we understood it in Lemuria. We had this ability to understand, oh, this plant here could use a little bit of help because the roots are waterlogged, or, like the plant would communicate and letting us know what it needed, or we had a natural ability to just know. But we did also have that communication with the plants and being able to understand them more. Now, I know for myself, my ability to communicate with plants has gotten easier and easier the more I've just naturally flowed into who I am, I guess. The more authentic I become, the more natural it is to communicate with my plants and understand what they need. In fact, I have a brief story to share. So I take a walk twice a day, and there's an office building that I go by, and there's a plant in that office building that needs watered. And I'm going crazy because that plant talks to me every time I walk by, and I can't do anything about it. It's like a health center office building, so you can't go in without a badge. And I want to go knock on the window until somebody comes to it and say, water this plant, because she's very close to being at the end, and it's really difficult for me. But that can be like the same. My room is full of plants. I have a bunch of plants in front of me. I have hanging plants above me. I have plants behind me, as you can see. And they will let me know when they're feeling something. And it's not like they're like, hey, Lalantia. Like, it's just I just can sense their energy communicating with me. Hey, I need water, or I'm waterlogged. Like, they let me know what is going on. So I can't really ignore it. I just watered my plants today because they were starting to feel energetically a little bit more ready to receive water again. I had been gone for almost 3 weeks, and my plants didn't get any water. The one thing I was concerned about the whole time I was gone is my poor plants. Like, I felt so bad. And now they all did fine. They all survived. And so yeah, they managed without me, but now it's like trying to get back into that flow of them being able to receive the water after a long period of time of no water. So Lisa, let me know if that answers your question. I will say too, okay, go ahead.
I wanted to jump in and say, like, that's something so human for us to do, right? To like physicalize the things that we're picking up on, like within the spiritual community. And just like everyone does this, like when we started out, we were just like, the same thing happened to us as well. And it's like, the more we go along on this journey, the more I start to recognize that it's not about receiving a certain image, or we're so used to having everything tuned for us, right? We either hear something very clearly because they're advertising something, or we see something very clearly because they put so much in images and so much like time and effort in that and making it clear for us. So our brain doesn't even, like, we don't even have to think about it because our brain is already registering everything that we're hearing or seeing. And I think that has disconnected us from being able to pick up on these subtle energies that everything and all emits on this planet, right? And I think that's a big part of why people feel so drawn towards being in nature as well, and why when you have a room without plants or you have a room with plants, we can pick up on that difference so quickly, because it's such a natural thing for us to communicate and to feel plants and to feel that life force that's surrounding us. But we're so zoned out in our daily routine or life that we don't really notice it with other things. And we really have to focus in on it and train ourselves to recognize that. While with plants, it's such a natural feeling that kind of everybody has, right? Even if you're not consciously working with it.
It is. And I really love that you brought this up, because yes, it is very subtle. And people, I get this a lot with when I start coaching people, and they're like, I'm not getting anything. I don't know what's happening. You know, like I have not connected at all. They have this belief that they're not connected and they're not receiving anything. But it is subtle energy. And the more you get familiar with it, the stronger it gets, until it's just natural. And so much of that is when we can harmonize our energy field with the earth and be able to be more present with the earth itself, and be able to be, I mean, it goes along with grounding as well, I guess, but be able to feel that connection and just being and allowing. And this space of allowing is something that we really struggle with, because it's like people are always wanting to push or pull the energy, and we need to be in that space of allowing. That doesn't mean that we don't take action. There is still time for action, but this allowing opens ourselves up. It's not putting an expectation on how we receive it. So I can't necessarily explain how I receive some energy or some messages. I can't really explain it in one way, but I still can feel it or know it, whatever. It's all still there. I still know that my plants are communicating with me, even if they're not like speaking to me. And actually, plants have spoken to me as beings, but most of the time they do not. 99% of the time they don't. And it's more of just a subtle energy. And it is very subtle. And we're so used to things being like in our face. And then we get so in our heads about it. We're trying to like figure everything out. We want to understand everything with our brain, and we can't. And I think this is like a big lesson for so many, that we don't need to understand it with our mind. Now, I am not a scientific person. I do better not knowing the science, because that just confuses me and gets my head all tied up in knots. But I do get in my head in regards to other things. And especially when I was learning to open up to receiving other energies and recognizing their communication, whatever it may be, the energy that they're bringing in, that, you know, I would get very much in my head. Or when I started channeling, and even still sometimes, especially if I'm having a bad day, you know, and I'm channeling someone or a being or an energy of some kind, you know, our own thoughts enter in there. So it's recognizing, oh, what part of that is me? Did my thoughts enter in? Did my filter, you know, click into place and filterize it and change it? What part is me and what part is not me? And being able to always recognize that, and just that space of allowing, it's so important to recognize that we cannot force things, and we have to allow that subtleness of energy to affect us.
Yeah, and I think that's where the part comes in as well that you said about, we have to recognize that all our abilities are completely unique to ourselves, to this lifetime. Like there's so many factors to that. And that's why like I so resonate with not being able to explain how you know the things that you know, right? It's like, and especially when I started working with other people's energy, and like sometimes they're like, wow, Natalie, like you're so accurate, like how do you do that? And it's like, I don't, I just allow it to come forward for me. And especially because it's not something that's attached to me personally, I'm able to really clearly like make a storyline out of the energy that's coming forward, because that's what we're doing, right? We're making a storyline with, and we're like portraying that to the people that we're reading for or whatever. But like it's all of these different things together, and we portray that into something that is understandable for the person that we're talking to.
Yeah, I've had a lot of frustration with this lately, actually, because the energy does, like, energy does not translate into words a lot of times. Like, we have to find the words to fit, and sometimes there are no words in English anyways that fit the energy that I'm getting. And I'll say one word and it's like, no, that's not the right word. And I'll like try out different words and none of them really quite feel right. And so I'm trying to explain it's not this, but it's like this, it's kind of like this and this word. And it can be very frustrating translating that because we are very limited. Energy is so much bigger, and bringing that energy into a tiny little box to fit for our human minds is kind of a pain in the butt, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think it depends on how open the receiver is as well, because we can be translating a vision that we're seeing, and we can have someone that's so open and is like, oh yeah, that's actually tuning in to that same thing, their own energy, and picking up on things and making that connection. And that's what we're trying to do, so they can see that connection for themselves and understand what we're trying to say. But we can also have people who are like, oh, that doesn't make sense to me at all, because they're not open to receiving it in another way than a clear yes or no cut answer, you know?
Yes, that is a good point. And Lisa does say that this helped her with understanding, so that's good. So I wanted to read this little bit. I was going to read a different bit, but as we're talking, I'm seeing that this part is actually what I'm supposed to read. So this is what I had channeled from Luna, who is a Lemurian collective of 3 beings, Lemurian beings. And Luna is like the main, like the energy. I communicate with the one that's kind of standing in the front of the 3. They're like a little triad there. And so one of them kind of communicates to me the most, and I guess some of it is just like the energy they bring in. But anyways, I channeled this 2 years ago, so it's been a little while. So this is just a piece. I channeled quite a few pages that day, so this is kind of just jumping in at the middle of it, but I think that this is what really matches the conversation that we're having today. So she said, allow yourself to see the power of being your true authentic self and the magic that exists in that. Recognize that you have the power, the ability, and the gift to stand in the truth and power of what feels good, what feels right. For it is in standing in the truth and power of your true self that you discover the magic of being you and see what true alignment is, the experience of flow, the experience of connection to self, the experience of knowing within you what brings joy. Finding the magic of the true self elevates your human experience, and not only how you relate to and draw into you others, but how you interact with the world at large. You see within you glows a light. In this light, you see the essence of your own divine self and the eternal truth of your soul, the history of all lives, all experiences. In allowing the expansion of this light, you see the truth of all that is, all that has been, and all that will be, or the potential of what you may choose to create. You must take back your power, own your abilities, and recognize the power of your truths. When you sit within and share the truths of your soul, you cannot go wrong. It is when you allow fear, doubt, and insecurity to overwhelm you that you once again find misalignment. The next part, she goes and they go into talking about like food and what food resonates with their body, and I'll talk about that in like another video or a post or something, because there's so much stuff I want to share here. But this is another paragraph that I want to share. And what she says is, it is important to find yourself in a space that is sustainable. To maintain a higher frequency at a level that stays steady, you will need to recognize what you desire to allow within your own space, or the space in which you choose to dwell. It is always your choice. You may choose to spend time with those who may bring you down, but perhaps you can own your power and sustain your energy by not allowing them to impact your energy. You must remember the power you hold. You choose to not allow others to bring you down. So that means that we can interact with other people who are not within our vibration or may not be awakened or understand energy, and we can be in a space that it does not affect us. Now that means that we're going to have strong boundaries. We're not going to allow an impact of their energy and the words that they use to hit us. Like, it'll be like a wall. It kind of bounces off. What they say does not have anything to do with us. It's their own stuff. But we can still choose to interact with them. And of course, there may still be things that are in alignment to have conversations with them. Obviously, we love our family. We want to spend time with them, but they may not have the same awareness and understanding that we have of energy and spirit and the universe and all that is. But that doesn't mean we want to cut them out of our lives. So we find that place of boundary energetically, which doesn't have to be in words. It can just be an energetic thing, and how we choose to take on that energy when they send it out, or the words that they use, not allow that to impact us. But what felt really powerful about this is that when we are really strong in our authentic self, when we're really in our power of our most authentic self, then everything else can come into alignment and flow. It can open up within us, and we can recognize that things do not always have to be hard, that we are just blocking our own way because we are caught up in the hows and whens and whats, and we're not actually opening up to that flow of energy. That doesn't mean that there's not action. There is action. We have to choose to show up and do the things that need to be done within the physical world in order to allow those things to unfold. But that connection to our authentic self is a key factor in all of it.
Yeah, I also really love the part about doing whatever it is that sustains you in being high vibrational, because that is different for everyone. Like, some people get really high vibes and are really into working nonstop. Like, that's what makes them motivated. That's what makes them feel good. They are like the energizing bunnies. And they're like, oh, go, go, go all day. And that's what they love. That's what brings them joy. That's what brings them happiness. And some people are like, oh no, that's not for me. Like, that's not something that I could do. That would not be sustainable for me to do. I kind of think it's sad that we have put so much barriers on, oh, you know what, to be a healthy person, you need to do this and that, and you need to get 8 hours of sleep, and you need to drink that much water, and you need to do all of these exercises every single day, and then you need to do all of these things. And I think that this is such a personal thing. Like, some people can thrive on 6 hours of sleep. Some people need 10 hours of sleep to just be able to function. I think it's such a personal thing, and we often forget because we're being treated as one collective thing. And of course we are a collective, but I think honoring every single individual one within the collective is going to really let us recognize that we all beautifully mold this diverse and unique thing into one collective that really balances each other out as well.
So it's really interesting that you brought this up more, because the part that I kind of skipped over is literally about that. It was like going into the food aspect of it more, because it was like, so I know that in Lemuria we had balance, and we weren't eating meat, as far as I understand. And some people say that we ate fish, but I don't know. But to me, it was just like that harmony with the earth, so we didn't hurt the planet. So I was just curious about what Luna had to say about that. And so what she said, it is not our concern over what foods are good, what foods are not. It is the matter of your reaction to these foods. Do they sit well within the vessel of your physical form? Do they serve the vessel with the nutrients required? Do they lift your vibrational frequency to the level required to connect with your true self and divine essence? Do the foods enrich you? The sustenance in which you partake plays a role in the energy in which you sit. You must face that your physical form needs care and nurturing. It requires stable and sustainable foods that are perfect for each individual. You must recognize with each food you eat, does this sustain and nurture me? So it's different for every person. You know, we can't say that every single spiritual person needs to be vegan, because that's not true as far as we know. I mean, I don't know, but that's how I'm being shown that, right? I would love if the whole world was vegan. It would solve so many problems that this earth has. But that is not, this is a school. Earth is a school. So it's not the path for everybody. And I have to recognize that. But we want to find more balance in that. So for me, this is what is right for me. And each person has to find that within themselves and what sustains them. And I think that this is how we can speak to people into finding what is right for them, so that we can each individually find that path for ourselves. You know, eating a bag of chips a day, does that make you feel good? Does it raise your vibration? Probably not. So maybe eat less than a bag of chips. Maybe only eat 3 chips at a time. No, I'm just kidding. But, you know, like taking into account what you're putting into your body and how it is helping you. But there's rules, you know, everybody has to find their own way. And I eat junk food. I ate some chips yesterday. So that's why I use that example. I didn't eat a whole bag though.
I ate some fries for dinner, so
yeah, see, nobody is perfect, and we do want to have a pleasurable experience on earth, and part of the pleasure that we find is in the food that we eat. So how can we find foods that bring us a sense of pleasure that also support and nurture our body? And a lot of it is, we like things of convenience. You know, we make those fries because they're easy. We can pop them in the oven real quick and eat them, or stop at a fast food restaurant, grab some, or any restaurant. You know, like it's a simple thing, but we need to be thinking about how we feel and how it is supporting us and how we feel.
yeah. And I love that you said that, because I don't know if it was you that I heard this story with, or it was somewhere else, but I always remember this story. So it goes about that trees all have a different purpose. And like us tree lovers, when a tree gets cut down, oftentimes we're like, oh man, they're cutting trees, you know? Like that's I know that's your instant reaction. I know it is mine. So, and then in this story, it goes, but when it is all the intent that goes into it, because this story goes about this guy or whatever, and they were planting trees, and they were planting trees to sustain the forest and to sustain the planet, but they were also planting trees with the intent of making a home out of them. And I remember that the story goes about, like, someone says, oh, but why do you want to cut down these trees to make a home out of it? And I thought you loved trees so much. And then when they go into the energy of the tree, they realize that this is actually the tree's purpose. And this is what the tree wants for itself, because they have been co-creating with these people. And it's such a beautiful thing, right? That the tree is like, but this is my purpose. Like, this is why I was born, and this is what I want to do, because I will be providing my friends and family who have been here with me all my life, and I will be able to stay with them and provide for them as well. And it's such a beautiful balance in that way. And I think I often think of that story in regards to other topics, of course, but I always try to look back at that, because it totally shifts my perception.
Yeah, it is a really good story, because it is that way for a lot of different things. We could look at that tree also as its purpose was to keep you warm. Its purpose was to be the wood that goes in your fire to keep you warm. In my experience with communicating with trees, they understand this purpose. They understand when it is time for them to go, when their time is finished and they're going to be cut. And it's not like they die a permanent death. You know, they can incarnate in another tree or in another experience. Trees do have an understanding now, and a purpose, like you said. Now, I do believe that we are learning as humans to be more sustainable, and that it is key and extremely important that we learn to be more sustainable in our living and how we choose to build, and all of the things that we do, that more sustainable way of life. It is becoming even popular in culture to be more sustainable and to have sustainable homes, just like tiny homes are becoming, you know, more of a thing. so that we learn to not have to take up so much space upon this planet, because there's so many people here. And how can we, just have a smaller footprint? But yes, that tree's purpose could, and also, so I was watching Tiny House program this morning as I made breakfast, and they had a butcher block table, and that wood is so beautiful, right? That tree's purpose may have been to be their kitchen table and to be a part of their family for years to come. And so yeah, I think a lot of times we have a lot of judgment for people who cut down trees. My brother is actually a logger. That's what he does to make his living. And it's quite hard for me, honestly. It is a little bit hard for me, but I also know that he saves people's homes from trees. He saves like trees that are dead and about to fall on people's homes. He cuts those down. That somebody needs to do that. It's when they go out and they clear cut a forest that's really hard for me. But I like that story of, that tree was co-creating unconsciously for the human, most likely, to be a part of somebody's home, or to be the wood in their fireplace, or whatever it is. And so that, I think, helps us kind of remember that bigger picture, that everything has its purpose here, and we're just finding a new balance in that. And we all need to find that balance within our own lives and what is aligned with us. But yeah, I think that is amazing, and that is a part of how it was in Lemuria. We had a balance, and our homes are very sustainably made. We didn't take more than we needed. We were very intentional. We were very intentional. And that to me is really, really important. That's what I feel called to in this human experience, is to find my way back to intentional living, where everything has intention. Everything I eat, there's an intention in eating it. I mean, obviously I'm eating because I'm hungry, but more than that, this is sustaining me. It's healthy. It's, whatever it is. But we had intention in everything in our life, that everything we did had a purpose to it, and it had a sacredness in it. And that is what really feels important. And I feel that from Lemurian Avalon, especially, that intentional living and learning to live in a place of sacredness. And that's how we were so much in Lemuria, that place of sacredness and honoring the earth and caring for her and caring for all of the plants and the animals, and having communication and flow open between us. And we don't have that anymore. We're building gigantic roads and apartment complexes that are enormous. I live in one, I can't judge it, but we are needing to remember how to live smaller and more in flow. Whatever that may be for you. So for some people, maybe it's not smaller. Maybe you can live in harmony in a bigger house. I'm not going to hold any judgment in how you live, really, because sometimes I dream of living in a castle still. So, I mean, it would be a castle that's already built, but still, I don't know what the future holds, but I do feel like that us learning to I don't want to say go back, but remember that flow that we can have with the earth, that openness and communication, and what does my body need today? What does the earth need today? How can we work together? That kind of stuff, and opening that up. And Lemuria was a very watery place. We worked a lot in that. When I think of Lemuria, I think of water. Like more than any of the other lost lands, although all of them had water as a strong element in them. But Lemuria is just this place of so much flow and alignment. We understood alignment then. And that's what I think we need to reawaken within ourselves, is what alignment is. And that life doesn't have to be so hard. We are the ones that are creating the struggle for ourselves, but it's a part of our lessons. I mean, it's why we're human. It's why we're here right now, is to learn and to grow, and also to be the creators of the new earth. So, many purposes that we're here right now for, but yeah, it doesn't have to be so hard.
I love that you brought that up about the living with intention. It's so funny because I was gonna mention it as soon as you were done talking, and then you brought it up, and I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. Yeah, I remember you said that. I think it was a couple of weeks ago on a live, and it really hit me on a different level. I was like, yes, like that is such a goal to live every day with intention, because I think that's where a lot of us get lost along the way, because we're so zombified to doing things without thinking about them, without having an intention for them, except for providing whatever need needs to be satisfied in that moment. And yeah, I love that. That's definitely something that I have been working with the weeks after you said that, and I'm still doing that, to really be intentional about every single thing that we do inside our day.
Well, we live by this feeling, this rule of needing to do that,
Yeah.
oh, I need to get this accomplished and this accomplished and this accomplished. Now, I do think it's important to set intentions. These are things that are important for me to get done because it's going to make me feel better. It's going to make me feel better if my laundry is finished, if my bed is made, if the dishes are clean in my sink. Those aren't things that I want to do, but it feels better in my home when they're done. So doing that, though, without that whole, oh, I have to do dishes again, oh, I'm so sick of doing this, but instead with an energy of, well, I'm really grateful that I have dishes and food to eat. So, not making it a big deal about doing the cleanup. And this is a good reminder for me because I've been really frustrated with my own home and my children not helping me too much with that cleaning. And we're working on this still, but that if we can look at things as we can do that in a space of flow, even these things that we may not enjoy doing, we can do them in a space of flow and without struggle. And I take that time sometimes to either listen to audiobooks or music that is really inspiring, or I'll channel while I'm doing these things. And that helps to lift that energy and not make it so much of a chore. But also when it comes to like creating things, so if we're creating programs or social media content, like we want to do that in a place of alignment, because otherwise it's like it's forced energy. So how can you know that that's the real thing if you made yourself do it, if you made yourself sit down and do it when you're not in a place of alignment? So you really can only do it when you're in a place of alignment and flow. So how can you find that? And yes, I just saw Lisa's comment where she said, yes, it's like we're on autopilot. I love living with intention. Yes, yes, yes. And this is that slow life. This is what is important to me. I've mentioned this before, that I want to have a slow life where I sleep when I'm tired and I'm able to, go for walks and sit in nature and all of these things, but also all of those things support me. And when it is time for me to show up, when it's time for me to come on and do lives or meet with my clients, I'm not a person that's like, oh, I'm going to have 6 sessions today and that's my day. No, 6 sessions? Oh my goodness. I can't even imagine. Like that would be really pushing the energy really a lot for me. Like I think I've had like 4, 5, maybe 5 sessions a day, and that's too much. I prefer to have, 3 sessions, 2 sessions a day, like spread it out. I want to be able to show up fully for my clients or for whatever it is, programs, membership group, whatever. It is important to me to be able to show up fully and in alignment, because what's the point of showing up if you're not able to really be fully present and do what you committed to doing? So that's to me about that, living the slow life, being able to just do what feels in alignment and flow in that space. Now that doesn't mean, like, sometimes it's like we can procrastinate, and we have to recognize when we're procrastinating something and putting it off and choosing to do differently. But sometimes that's not just like, okay, I'm going to force myself to just sit down and channel this message now. I'm just going to make myself do it. It doesn't work that way. You have to find your way back to the flow and the ease of it.
Yeah. This was such a cool topic. Like, I really like, the hour flew by so fast.
It did.
It's crazy.
It is. Yeah. It went really fast. So, but this was awesome. I could talk about Lemuria forever. I do have some videos on my YouTube channel about Lemuria, or at least a video. My intention has been to do more videos about the Lost Lands. So I'm not sure how many I have up for Lemuria. I might only have one up. But anyways, definitely check out my YouTube channel if you haven't already. If you're watching this on my YouTube channel, you can find the playlists that will say Lost Lands, and eventually I may have them even broken up more, but for now that's how it is because I don't have so many, but I'm working on it. And anybody who has questions on replays or on YouTube or whatever, post them, because that helps me know what content to create later, based on things that people are wondering. So yeah, I guess our hour is up. We went a little bit over. I have like so much to share though. It's like I have this notebook of things I want to talk about. So I don't know, I might write up some posts that is kind of on this topic as well. So
Yeah, and I want to say like, yeah, but we'll come back to this topic, but I want to say that about all the topics like every week. So I'm just gonna keep it to myself because we'll be coming back to it anyway.
yeah, I'm sure we definitely will. Lisa says being in flow and alignment has been very present for me lately. Yeah, that's good. I mean, that really shows that finding, I put it this way, I call it finding your way back to yourself, because we do get a bit kind of lost in things. And this is like that finding our way back to what is good for us individually. So, and you're so welcome. And Stacia, hello. Yes, definitely catch the replay. I think that this was a good conversation. I love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Like I love to hear people's experiences and stories. You know, if you've done past life journey or had memories, maybe dreams about Lemurian you want to share, please do. You know, we all have different experiences, and I love hearing from other people about them as well. Awesome. So we will see you guys on Monday. We will be back on Monday for the weekly reading at 10 a.m. Currently, we're at 10 a.m. because I have my class at 11, just for a few more weeks, I think. Maybe only 2 more weeks. Maybe it's 3 more weeks. I'll let you guys know. But anyways, for now, it's at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So we will see you guys on Monday. I hope that you have a wonderful and magical weekend. Bye.
Bye.